new satellite images published by AP, which seem to show that the secretive Israeli nuclear facility near the southern town of Dimona, that is at the heart of the nation's, I guess you could call it, undeclared atomic weapons program, is undergoing what appears to be its biggest construction project in decades. The photographs show a dig about the size of a football field and likely several stories deep now sits just meters away from the aging reactor at the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center. Now, what the construction is for, however, remains unclear. And under its policy of nuclear ambiguity, Israel neither confirms, of course, nor denies having atomic weapons. Well, joining us now for more is Dr. Avner Cohen. He's professor of non-proliferation studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, and he is author of the groundbreaking book, Israel and the Bomb, about Israel's nuclear program. He joins us now from Monterey, California. And Avner, great to have you on. You followed the doings at Dimona probably as closely as anyone over the years, outside of people who work there. What do you think is going on with this construction now?
Well, obviously, I do not know. So whatever I'm going to say is going to be a conjecture or speculation, or hopefully enlightened speculation, but just a speculation. As you noted, it is the largest excavation work at Dimona for a very, very long time. Essentially, the master plan of Dimona that has been completed roughly in the late 60s, early 70s, has almost not changed over those decades. Perhaps one building was added, but essentially that's it. It's the same master plan from the late 60s remain today. So this is a major work on the ground, digging. What it might be? Well, I'm thinking that the Dimona reactor, the symbol of the whole complex, is close to retirement. It's a matter of time. It's already 55 or so years in operation. Those kind of reactors do not work primarily more than 50 years or so. So Israel needs to think what's next. Israel has enough plutonium, presumably produced in that reactor. And the half-lifetime of plutonium is essentially practically limitless. It's hundreds of thousands of years. However, in advanced weaponry, there is one element called tritium, which its half-time is relatively short, 12.3 years. That means that you need a supply. And you do it through reactors or some other means. For example, it could be accelerators. My speculation is that it might be that Israel wants to modernize its commitment for its last resort capability, its undeclared weapons. And it could be possibly structure for a new reactor, suitable primarily for that production of tritium, or possibly another facility, accelerator, for example, that could fit for that purpose.
Right.
But Israel, like the United States, actually today has a need. The United States, since the late 80s, that not produced tritium in dedicated facilities. By now, it's doing it in dual-use civilian commercial reactors, but it has a similar problem.
Right.
So that's my reading.
Okay, a sort of upgrade. Let me ask you, Avner, because we're told that AP ordered these photos themselves, but of course we don't know the circumstances in which they decided to do that, or they may have gotten information. It's unclear if perhaps Israel could have carried this kind of construction in some way, obscuring it even from satellite imagery. Certainly the timing of these photos coming out looks a little auspicious, coming in just as in the midst, of course, these discussions about the Iranian nuclear program and the JCPOA. I mean, do you think it's possible there could be some message being sent by Israel through these photos in some way, just to remind the United States, for example, it has its own concerns, its own nuclear program, and perhaps saying, we need you to help deal with the Iranian situation, or we're going to be forced to respond with our program?
I don't think so. A little bit about the history of those photos. Well, it was discovered more than a month ago by a small academic group at Princeton that work on following fissional material worldwide. They ordered satellite pictures from early January, and it was discovered. In looking, it appears that the beginning of this excavation work started sometimes possibly late 2018 or early 2019. So it's not a very fast pace kind of work. The story came in The Guardian just about 4 days ago, and AP decided to have its own in their office in Dubai. They called me, so I know a little bit about it. They have their own satellite pictures taken actually as of Monday, February 22nd. I don't think it was orchestrated politically. It does play an interesting role right now in the context of what's going on with Iran, but my understanding, it was not planned as a message of anybody.
Could you address that context that you just raised briefly about, because the timing is, whether intentional or not, it certainly is very interesting timing.
Well, everybody must realize, and I'm sure that Israel knows it as anybody, better than anybody else, it's very difficult these days when you have available commercial satellites to take high-resolution pictures. And apparently those high-resolution images are resolution of about half a meter or so, that you cannot make major concealment work. That's going to be known, not only to intelligence organizations running by states, but to academic groups and other think tank groups and the like. So in that respect, whatever you do is going to be a message. There is no way to make a full concealment anymore. My reading is that Israel is not expanding what she has, but rather it's a commitment to preserve and modernize what she has. And of course, it's a message to anybody, to Iran, to the United States, to everybody, that Israel is in the business to keep its undeclared monopoly. That's the way to read it. And Israel needs to do it because it has a problem with tritium, and it has a problem with the reactor, the current reactor, the old reactor, which is not going to be there forever. So that's my thinking about it. Again, it's my own speculation. It's not based on any particular knowledge.
Right. Avner, in about a minute, let me just ask you, in about a minute left, you've done as much as anyone to chip away at the layers of secrecy on this program. Do you think it's still productive for Israel to maintain that policy of ambiguity about whether it has nuclear weapons?
No. I think the time has come for Israel to rethink and revisit this issue. It requires a great deal of thinking. Israel cannot do it alone. Israel must do it with conversation with others, the United States, regional powers. But I think the game of opacity, the game of don't tell, don't ask, don't tell, is outdated, and time has come to have a new bargain on this important subject.
All right. Well, we'll see if perhaps in future years there'll have to be a revised edition or sequel to Israel and the Bomb that will be keeping you busy. Dr. Avner Cohen, thank you for